Greetings, Seekers, and welcome back to DungeonFog. In this episode, we are going to be starting off our sort of mini-series within the editor that is going to be looking at advanced editing techniques, and starting with the blueprint tool. In order to use the blueprint effectively, you have to first make sure that you have a clear stage like I have here. It is going to be the easiest so you can see your blueprint as it appears as the image on the editor stage. And you also have to make sure that you have any of the blueprints you wish to use uploaded as images in the asset manager. If you need a refresher on how to do that, you can always go back to the asset manager video and check that out. That I go into a fairly in-depth look at how the asset manager works. So in order to add anything as a blueprint or use anything as a blueprint, you have to save it under the asset manager as an image. So when we click on the add blueprint, the blueprint tool can actually find it. So when you open up the blueprint editor, you're going to see a couple of tabs. One is going to be for the blueprint, in which any images that you have uploaded into the asset manager as an image will appear here. Now, the reason that you see it twice is because I have two different asset packs created in the asset manager, and both of them have the same image uploaded. But if you had different asset packs, any images that you upload within those asset packs, they're going to appear here. Remember, you can only add assets either from the asset manager database or your own to your own original asset pack. So you have to first create your own asset pack, and then you can start bringing in stuff into it directly. So we have lots of slots available to use. It says we have 9 slots used. That's going to go across all of the other maps that I've used blueprints on as well. So you've got a lot of room to play with. They have down here on the bottom a list of commands that you can use in order to actually effectively manipulate the image that you upload into the editor. And also go over to the resize map, in which you can actually manually adjust or remove the map physically, both within the preview here and on the editor itself. Anytime you apply that, it's going to take what you've done in the blueprint editor and then apply it to the stage below. You can always reduce to minimum size if you so wish. It also tells you what your current map size is. Back on the blueprint tool, we can click on the image. Since they're both the same image, it doesn't really matter. We click that, and now it preloads it into the editor. And then here's where the tricky stuff starts to really set in when you're using the blueprint tool. You'll notice that the image that I have uploaded has pre-existing grid space on it. And you'll also notice that it doesn't align to the editor grid space from within the blueprint editor. But there's a couple of ways that we can actually align these better to create a map that will fit within the stage itself. And that is where we are going to be utilizing these features as well as these tools down here. Anytime you see anything that refers to these key tools down here, it's going to refer to the image that you've uploaded. So we can rotate it counterclockwise, it spins the image. We can rotate it clockwise, it spins the image. We can have it reset the translation and rotation, which means if I accidentally do this, I can hit the reset translation and zoom, and it will default it back to as it was originally uploaded into the editor. Now, I'm glossing over these pretty quickly because a lot of these tools here are fairly self-explanatory, and if you just hover your mouse over one of them, it gives you a very quick indication of what that does. The 100% tool is it matches the map pixel size. So if your pixel size, when you originally created within the editor a specific pixel size limit, again, we can manipulate that. If you go back to creating a map way back when at the start of the video series, you'll see that you can actually manipulate the pixel size of the map prior to the creation of the map itself. So if we went to 100%, it would then actually match the image to the pixel size indicated in the map. Now, we don't want to do that because obviously this is too small for us to manipulate and visualize as well. What we're going to do is we're actually going to fit the image to the map, and that's going to blow it back up again. We see the zoom slider bar on the bottom. That just allows us to zoom in and out of the image and the map editor itself. We can go all the way in or all the way out. This is going to be useful when we're trying to align the editor grid lines with any pre-existing grid lines on the image that you upload. Again, the image that I uploaded has grid spaces on it, so we need to make sure that those grid spaces are in alignment with the editor grid space so that when we start manipulating assets and textures on the map, everything marries up perfectly. If we press Control and use the mouse wheel, we can then start scaling the grid. And what this is doing is this is basically telling DungeonFog, hey, I want to take the grid and I want to make it smaller, which means that when everything gets uploaded into the map, we can actually take the image here and shrink it down in size. So if we make our grid space super tiny, let's say, almost aligns it just a little bit, kind of useful if you're trying to align the grid space on the editor and on your image, but what we can do here is once we have the grid space smaller, we can then have the image fit the map that much better. And then we can start dragging and dropping and trying to align our texture to the grid space. Now, I have Snap to Grid on. We can turn Snap to Grid off if we think that we can try to get more accurate grid space placement. Kind of like that. So without really much manipulation, we're kind of there, but you can see that there are some grid spaces that aren't quite aligned. And there is a way to fix that. We're going to jump into that in just a second. If we need to do fine adjustments, we can hold Shift. If we need to rotate the image or the grid drawing, we can hold Alt. You'll see that this little cursor pops up here. And what the Alt button does is it opens up a whole new subset of commands that we can utilize in order to align the grid space. So we can drag a 3x3 grid to scale the image and align it with the map grid. Well, that's perfect. So what we want to do is we want to zoom all the way in as close as we can so that we can then trace a 3x3 grid space. So we're going to press Alt one more time, bring up our funky cursor, then we click the left mouse button, and now it eliminates the blueprint editor grid because we are drawing a new one. And what we can do then is try to align. You see how we get a grid 3x3 there? We release it. And now we have a perfect alignment of the editor and the image. And whenever we have everything to the way that we like, we just apply that. And once it's applied, then it sets it up on the map. After a few manipulations, including extending the map size here, zooming out on our editor, we now have the entire image that we've uploaded available for use. What we're going to want to do is we just want to change the grid here to something that makes it a little bit more visible. Let's go with dots because I find dots are the easiest thing. Now, whenever we place something down, let's say for a wall, just as an example, our walls now match up in alignment with the grid space existing on the image itself. There are a few other tools that we can utilize when we have an image uploaded and tooled the way we want it to. And that is obviously one of them being the opacity. So if we want it very, very visible, we can do so like that. If we want it just barely visible, we can adjust it like so. Now, I generally will like to have it closer to about 50 or 60 when I'm building stuff and placing assets down so that everything looks as close as I can to the original image. And then when I'm done with it, I actually just remove the image altogether and then I don't use it anymore. But you can see that there's a little bit of misalignment, but it's fairly close to what we're looking to get. We can go back and fine tune this alignment even further to get everything perfectly married up. But sometimes you're going to be off just a little bit in your alignment depending on how the editor and the grid space on the image that you're uploading, how those two will match up. So we did the best we could with what we had, but I could go in and probably fine tune this a bit more. But for our purposes, that is essentially the manipulation that you're looking at doing. Once we have an image uploaded, we can also do some color grading. Now, this is going to be kind of like utilizing the color grading when we have textures and other types of brushes and colors added onto the map. So if we enable this, contrasting, we can have color blending, meaning what it's taking is it's taking the image that we've uploaded and the base texture of the stage, and it's trying to blend those together as best as possible so that what you see on the map here is a blend of both the image and the base texture on the map. So you can make it so that there's no blending at all, in which case all you see is the image, or you can blend it a bit so that it maybe makes what you're tracing or what you're manipulating a little bit more vibrant. So maybe you want to use the grid and you want to use the uploaded image, and all you want to do is just maybe give it a little bit more coloring, as opposed to really putting down a whole slew of new assets. And this is where the color grading really comes into play. Our contrasting can make the texture on the stage level more stark and visible, or less so. Again, the higher the contrast, just the more visible and bright that base stage texture from the DungeonFog editor is going to be. And then, of course, the overall brightness, how much black or how much white coloring is included. If you need a refresher on really what any of that means, you can always go back to the brush tool and the colorization tool that I describe. You can always go back to that video, and I give a rundown of a little bit more detail about exactly how all these work together. If we don't like what we've done, we can always just reset the color settings and just defaults everything back. And then actions would be based on the selection tool. If we have any objects or assets or anything on here that we want to get rid of, we can just clear the stage. And if you need a refresher on that, go back to the selection tool video that I've done, and I go into detail about the actions and how those all work. There we have it, folks. Nice and easy, right? Thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate all the support. If you're not subbed to the channel, you can always hit the sub button down below and hit the bell icon so you can get notified when new videos get uploaded. If you're not following me over on my Twitch channel, you can always head over to twitch.tv/EsquireVT. I'd love to have you guys over on the channel supporting the live stream content that I do. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Appreciate you all, and I will see you all in the next video.